Welcome, everybody, to another brand new episode of It's My Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, as always, your host, Chris Dees. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, hit follow if you're listening on whatever audio platforms. Today's guest is a man I've been trying to get on this podcast for ages. We finally managed to sort it out. He's a former two-time WWE Cruiserweight Champion, ECW Original and Tag Team Champion there as well. He's a full-blooded Italian. He's, of course, the one and only Little Guido. Or Nunzio, man. Nunzio, thank you for joining me, man. How's it going?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It took a while. It should have been a few weeks ago, but for whatever reason, it wasn't working. I don't think we did anything different this time. I didn't do anything but click it. But when I first did, it did say it's not accepting it on his browser. And then it said, try this instead. And I just clicked something else and it went through.
Weird. Technology. It's technology, isn't it? It's just strange. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not great. Awesome, man. Thank you. Like I said, thank you for joining me. We've been trying to do it for ages. I know you're a busy man, so I'm not going to keep you for too long. So I'm just going to get straight into it. Like I said at the start there, ECW Original, ECW Tag Team Champion. You're one of the names that I associate with ECW. What were your first dealings with Paul Heyman like? Like, was he pretty hands-on with the Little Guido character in ECW, or did he give you a lot of freedom?
Well, he's the one that created the Little Guido character. Before I went there, I wrestled for UWFI in Japan, and I was wrestling independence before that as Damian Stone. And then I got an opportunity to go work for UWFI in like 1994. And I was going as James Stone instead of Damian Stone because they wanted me to use my real name, but that was more of a shoot style group out in Japan. And but they couldn't pronounce my real last name, which was Maritato. So it was hard for them to say that, you know. So when UWF closed down, I came back to the States. I worked there for a couple of years, and I was living in Nashville, going back and forth from Nashville, going there. And when I came home, before I went to Japan, I met Tommy Dreamer and Taz and all those guys on the independent circuit when for the Savoldis. I don't know, IWCCW. I don't know if you remember who they are. Well, you know the Savoldis, but I don't know if you know the group.
Yeah. Rings a bell.
Right. So, and then before I went to Japan, I was working for Todd Gordon when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. It was ECW, but it was before it came Extreme. So I was working there with Tommy Cairo and stuff, even before Taz and Dreamer at the time. So I knew Todd Gordon. So by the time I came back from Japan, ECW changed over and all that stuff to Extreme Championship Wrestling. This is like late 95, early 96. And I was actually wrestling in Puerto Rico. I'm giving you the whole backstory now. I was wrestling in Puerto Rico for Carlos Colon, and I met Pablo Marquez, and he was working for ECW. And ECW wasn't as big as it ended up getting. It was a lot smaller at that time. And he's like, "Oh, I'm wrestling for ECW." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I heard of that." I said, "I used to work there when it was Eastern Championship Wrestling." I'm like, "Tell Tommy Dreamer and Taz." I said, "Hello." And that's all I said to him. The next month, I went back to work for Carlos Colon, and I saw Pablo. And Pablo's like, "Oh, I talked to Taz, and Dreamer wants you to give him a call." So I gave, when I got back, I gave Dreamer a call. And he told me to come down to Lost Battalion Hall. He wanted to introduce me to Paul Heyman. That's when we were running Lost Battalion Hall right down from the Elks Club. Yeah. So I said, okay. So I went down, and I remember the first time I met him was in Lost Battalion Hall. And I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? My name is James Maritato. I wrestle as Damian Stone." He's like, "I know who you are." That's what he said. I don't know if he knew I was or not, but he followed everything anyway. Yeah. And, and he said, "Are you interested in working here and stuff?" And I said, "Sure." And he didn't give me the Little Guido name right away. So as months went on, I didn't really work TVs that much. I was just doing like house shows. As time went on, he was always like, "You remind me of a Joe Pesci type of guy." You know who Joe Pesci is?
Yes. Yeah.
Joe Pesci, small guy, but his mouth is the size of a 6'9" guy. Wanted to fight everybody. So he's like, "You remind me of Joe Pesci." He goes, and every week I would go back, he would always talk about that little character. He's like, "I want you to be small, but you want to beat up the world, and high strung and nasty, and think you could beat everybody up. There's nobody that can beat you up. You could beat everybody up." And then one day I came into Lost Battalion Hall like 2 months later, and he came up to me. He goes, "You're going to be Little Guido." He goes, "You're going to be JT Smith's cousin," which I had on TV. And I came out in Lost Battalion Hall a few months later and because JT Smith started doing the Italian thing. So everybody always really thinks that I was the original FBI member in ECW. I was one of the originals, and I lasted there throughout. But JT Smith was actually the first full-blooded Italian. And then He left after a year, and then I stayed with the gimmick through, Tracy Smothers and Tony Mamaluke, and then a bunch of other people too. But the history has it, JT Smith is actually the first full-blooded Italian member. And Paulie always had his hands on everything. Everybody's character. He went from top to bottom, everybody, and he definitely gave you freedom once you got in the ring. He let everybody be themselves. So he gave me, with me, was more a little bit of my character with the Joe Pesci thing. And then it's whatever I did with it. And then he would tweak it here or there, depending on whatever I did. There's a lot of guys that would come in there and he would just let be themselves. And then if you wanted to tweak something, he would tweak it. And that was the whole thing about his TV. You didn't have really times on your matches. We would go out there. Every match could be TV 20 minutes, but it was always taped. So like you could do a 20-minute match. And then when you see it on TV, he just shows clips of it, or he'll turn a 20-minute match into a 6-minute match, So that's the way that was back then.
Right, cool. So like, you can't really get better than Paul Heyman, can you? To like manage a character. He's one of the greatest minds that there's ever been in the business.
Oh, absolutely. And I knew of him way before then too. So and this was the first great opportunity for me. I've been on Japanese TV for a few years, but nobody knew who I was in America. So then, because then you had the dirt sheets or whatever, but you didn't have the internet. You didn't have any of that back then. So whatever you did in Japan on TV stayed there. Unless you had Meltzer's sheet used to cover us all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
I trust Paul. He did a lot for me. Obviously, after ECW closed, a couple of years later, he actually got me into WWE too, working with Vince McMahon. So, he's helped my career a lot. He's done a lot for me.
Yeah, that's what I always hear about him. He always, people have said a lot of bad things about him, but he puts his life on the line for people, doesn't he, Heyman? Yeah. Always.
Hey, listen. And I've said this before, people that do hate him and talk shit about him maybe have the right to. Maybe they don't like him. Maybe, he didn't do right by them. You only could judge somebody who does right by you. So,
of course,
for me to sit here and shit on him for what? If it wasn't for him, I would have never had a wrestling career. You put me on TV in ECW, he made me semi-famous there. He brought me to WWE. He did the right thing by me. And, people that don't like him, okay, maybe they have a reason not to like him. I understand that, but you got to judge people for what they did for you. And I understand. I'm with people all the time that are like, oh, and I do interviews and people want me to shit on him. I'm like, listen, I don't need anything for Paul Heyman, so I could shit on him now if I wanted to. I don't need anything for him, but it would be wrong for me to do that. I moved on from wrestling. I'm doing fine, and that's it. So there's no reason. I'm not afraid to talk bad about him.
Yeah.
What do I have to talk bad about him about?
No.
He gave me 8 years in WWE. He gave me 4 years in ECW, and a ton of independence to this day because of those two names I had.
Yeah, man. And you said, like you say, he helped get you into WWE, and when you went to WWE, you were obviously eventually a part of the failed ECW reboot, the WWE ECW.
But I went to WWE 3 years before that.
Yeah,
I went there at the end of 2002 when ECW did close down. I used to work in the merchandise office with Dreamer and Devon, and when ECW closed down in 2000, Paulie always kept in touch with me, and they'd say, "Oh, I'm going to get you a job here one day. I'm going to get you a job," and I was like, "All right." But it was a rough time. WCW closed down, so you had all these top talents there. ECW closed down all within like the same month or whatever. You had all those top talents. And then you had me, which was basically a mid-card guy to begin with. Mm-hmm. So it was like I had to kind of wait. Like Paulie kept saying, don't worry, I'll get you in. And there came a point where a couple of years went by. And I then I kind of honestly thought it was over, and I started to not think about wrestling anymore. And I ended up getting a job with Snapple, believe it or not. And I was only working there about a month. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from Paul Heyman, and I see his number, and I haven't spoke to him in a while. And he's like, congratulations. And I'm like, Paul? He's like, congratulations. So I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Because I never knew. He goes, I told you I'm going to get you in here one day. I'm like, okay. He goes, John Laurinaitis is going to be calling you and bringing you in. He goes, and honestly, at this time, he's like, don't tell him I told you. He goes, he'll be giving you a call in a couple of weeks. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, Johnny called me, left a message. I was actually in a CVS taking a Snapple order. I come back, Johnny was on my voicemail. He's like, no, he didn't call me Nunzio because I didn't have that name yet. Guido or James, whatever he said. And he's like, this is John Laurinaitis. And Johnny was just getting that spot. He was just taking over for Jim Ross.
Yeah.
And he's like, give me a call ASAP. I need to talk to you. I called him when I got back to my car. And he asked what I was doing. And I told him what I was doing. He's like, we would like to bring you in for a tryout. He called it a tryout. And I was like, okay. He's like, how's your schedule and everything? And he set something up. And I went into Dallas and Amarillo. I did Raw dark match versus Funaki. And then I did another dark match the next night at SmackDown, or vice versa, versus Stamboli, believe it or not. It ended up being my partner years later. And then at the end of that, Jim Ross came over to me and said, Johnny wants to talk to you in his office. And they offered me a job. So I don't think that was actually a tryout. I think I actually had the job. But, Johnny made it sound like a tryout. And the reason I think I had the job is because Paulie called me a couple weeks before that and gave me a heads up that he was calling me. And so I was in WWE in 2000, end of 2000. So I was there before the ECW. I was there before the remake. That was in 2006. So I was there doing the cruiserweight thing versus Tajiri and all that. And I was Jamie Noble's cousin. And then I was with me, Chuck, and Johnny. We were working with The Undertaker, Brock Lesnar as the full-blooded Italians at the time. And then Chuck went to do the biker gimmick. I think Johnny got released, but then they brought back the old ECW, now 2006. So I was part of that failed ECW for whatever, as long as it ran. I think I was there to the end. And then I went back to SmackDown, I think, for a couple. And then I think that was it, because I was released in August 2008.
Yeah.
So that was it. So yeah, I was there before. And it was actually cool when they did the remake of ECW in the beginning, because everybody thought it was cool. Because then they brought all the old guys back, the guys that didn't work there. Danny Doring, Balls Mahoney, Axel Rotten, guys that didn't have a job there or never got there after ECW. And it gave them an opportunity for whatever it was, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it did. So, it actually helped. Did it work? I don't think so. There's a lot behind why it didn't work. I don't really know all the statistics, but, obviously it didn't according to everybody. So,
yeah.
And obviously it closed down.
I've heard a lot of people say a lot of different things. I've heard Paul Heyman himself say some things. I think Vince just didn't like it, did he? He always felt like Vince just wanted it to do badly.
Yeah. Well, he would know that better than me, of course. Yeah. And I've heard him say that too, because he was, I think, and this is my own, my own opinion is, I think when they're supposed to get it, it's supposed to be Tommy Dreamer and Paulie running it like it was back in the day. And it never was like that. Vince had his hands in it, and Vince was behind it. He was there at all the TVs, because we were basically taping at the SmackDown and Raw tapings anyway. So we were taping after that show went off the air. And I was there the night Paulie quit. It was December to Dismember. It was a pay-per-view I did. It was me and Mama Luke versus Burke and what's his name, the big guy. I'm forgetting his name. Whatever it was. And Paulie quit that night. I remember he called me on the phone. I forget exactly where we were. And we were at SmackDown. He says, come to Big Show's truck, whatever. Yeah, the bus. And he was in there and he's like, just to let you know, I quit. I'm like, really? He's like, yep, I'm gone after today. I said, okay. I said, I'm sorry to hear that and everything. But him and I know for a fact, him and Vince McMahon were butting heads way before that. They were, Paulie wanted this, Vince wanted this. Paulie wanted this, Vince wanted this. Paulie wanted to do this, Vince wanted to do this. But you never know the way things work out, because you see what happened there. And then years and years later, Paulie came back as the head writer, a few years ago, and Paulie still works there. Yeah. Paul's still there, things don't work out, but, he's very talented, and he's definitely helps the company. Yeah, I don't think he's the writer anymore, but he did it for a couple of years. It just seems like any writer who's there, no matter how great you are or not, I think after a couple of years, nobody's ever there. Gerwitz was there for a long time. And actually, Ed's still there, I believe. I always got along good with him, Koski. But you know what? For guys like, guys that were famous that became writers there, seem to come and go. They come back sometimes, but they come and go.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it definitely got a lifespan, haven't you? Like a certain shelf life as a writer in WWE, definitely. Right, let's move away from WWE for a minute, because I want to ask about TNA, because I was really surprised to see you pop up in TNA. I think it was Hardcore Justice. You were only there for about 3 weeks, just under 3 weeks. Why did
Well,
that?
they didn't want us there. That was Tommy Dreamer did that. At the time it was and I've spoke to and Eric Bischoff, and I didn't know Eric Bischoff at that time that well, but I ended up getting to know him when we were in WWE.
Yeah.
But at that time, that's when Vince Russo was running it, and Eric Bischoff and Hogan and them. And I don't think there was really a place for us. That was Dreamer. Did that one big pay-per-view and everything, and was trying to get all the guys in, and then they offered us the contracts on TV. And then I do remember when Dreamer's saying they're going to offer us all contracts, and then me, Mama Luke, and a bunch of other guys were left off of that, going to the ring to receive the contract. So I went to Tom and said, Tom, you're telling me we're getting contracts? It doesn't look that way. I'm hearing that we're not even part of the angle anymore. So basically, they brought us in just to get over Bobby Roode and them and James Storm, which was fine. We agreed to do it. They were honest with us in the end. The last day, they told me the truth. So it didn't last, I think, because I wasn't figured in there. Yes, I came in for the big pay-per-view that Dreamer set up, which was Hardcore Justice. And then they used a bunch of us guys for a couple of tapings after that. But me, myself, and Mama Luke, and a couple of guys, I don't think was on the list. Not for any reason. Not that Vince Russo hated me or Bischoff hated me. I don't think for any of that reason. I just think their creative minds didn't have anything for me. And Dreamer was a part of it, and he had something for me. Thought I could help out. But at the end of the day, that's what I believe. That those guys didn't have anything for me, and nothing personal. That's just the way it goes. So my run there was more of a walk. I wouldn't call it a run. And end up, it lasted a month and a half on TV, but it actually only lasted about 3 weeks because we taped. It was taped. So we did a couple things in one. And then I'll be honest, the last night, and I appreciate it, Terry Taylor came up to me because he was the head of talent relations there. And he's like, guys, listen, this is one of the last TV tapings I did. They wanted us to go against Bobby Roode and James Storm, and they were getting a nice push at the time. And Terry's like, listen, guys, we're not bringing you back after this. We'd like you to go out there and have a match with them. Honestly, the match is going to be about 80-20. Now, if you go back and watch it, you can watch it on YouTube. It was on TV. They even asked if we can get color for them, but they understand if we didn't want to do it. We can go home. They would pay us, but we're not going to be brought back. But we're basically what they were asking me and Tony's, we're going to squash you out if you don't mind. We're going to get color. But I gave them a lot of respect for that because the way it could have went was, oh, yeah, you guys are coming back. You guys are coming back. But don't worry, just do this match 80-20, get some color, blah, blah, blah. Then I go home and I never get a phone call back.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. Terry Taylor was 100% honest with me. And then I said, let me talk to Tony. I talked to Tony only for a few minutes. I said, Tony, fuck it. I said, what's the difference? Let's just do what they asking us to do. And we're not going to be back, and that was it. And I even said to Tony, I said, I gave him credit for telling us. You told us that you're going to basically squash us out. You're going to get color and we're not bringing you back. I was like, how much honest can you get? How could you just say no? I couldn't say no. He was very professional and I really did appreciate that. And that was it. We did that match and it was over.
Yeah, you don't hear about honesty in the wrestling business very often, do you? It's all the opposite, all the backstabbing and all the bad stuff.
Terry Taylor was 100% honest with me, and I appreciate that. And we went and did professional, and that was it. Then we went home and didn't hear from him since. Although I did hear from him afterwards when Scott D'Amore took over. I did stuff when they were doing the House of Hardcore stuff.
Yeah. How about Rinka King when you were there as Tony Broadway? That only lasted for one season.
Yeah. Me and Joey Ryan. Yeah, that came about. That was That was TNA afterwards too. That was after TNA. Yeah. I did the TNA thing, and I got a call because at that time, I'm trying to blank guy's name, and he helped Dave Lagana. Dave Lagana, who always treated me very well in ECW and WWE. He was one of the big writers there. He took a liking to me too. He wrote some real good stuff for me. But I guess that time he was with TNA. And then him and Jared, who I knew Jared, not know him, but back and forth because he knew of me. I knew of him. Obviously I know who he is. And he watches the show. And I think I was in WWE for a couple of years while he was there. or he came and visited or something, whatever it was. But they got involved with Rocky King, and then I got a call from Lagana, and he's like, "Hey, we're doing this thing with Rocky King. We want you involved. We're gonna have you and actually, me and Joey Ryan did that Hollywood and Broadway. We did that in California for Marquez when Lagana was helping him book. So we actually did it there after, before we went to Rocky King. So anyway, it was Lagana that basically got me in there, and he was the writer, and they wanted to bring us in and make us use us as Hollywood and Broadway. And unfortunately, that only lasted like 2 seasons. Those people weren't fans. You had to hand feed them. I mean, it was the easiest job in the world because they were told when to cheer, when not to cheer. They just wanted to look good for TV. Yeah. It even got to a point where I'm not so sure this is true or not. But supposedly they were getting paid as like extras, like just to try to get this off the ground. I don't know how true that was, but I do know that before the cameras went on, that we were warming them up and booing and hiring the right people because they didn't really know who anybody was. Yeah. But it was the easiest crowd to work in front of because they I don't think they were fair. Now I know WWE goes out there all the time now, so obviously they all know WWE, but they didn't really know. And that was an India-based company, Rocket King. We worked with it wasn't like a company from the United States like the WWE went over there. These people, we had some big names over there. We had Steiner and all them, but we don't know how much these people knew some of the bigger names because they were, depending. But supposedly they weren't really smart fans, and you know what I mean by smart. They weren't smart to wrestling.
Yeah.
So
they
were. It was like more of like making Rocky and just filling the arena with extras, paying them money if they paid them money, and then telling them when to cheer, when not to cheer. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's an experience as well, isn't it? I guess like it was.
Yeah. It was a great time. We that was my first time going to India. We went for 2 weeks, did a bunch of tapings, like one season. Then we went home for like 2 weeks, then went back and we taped I think we taped the same season. I don't think it made 2 seasons, right? It only made 1 season. You could watch that on the internet. Yeah. So we taped it in 2 different sections. We were there for 2 weeks, went home for 2 weeks, went back for 2 weeks. Right. And then I was just watching that not too long ago on the internet. So that's a good thing about the internet. Anything you do on TV, you always can go back and watch. So, but yeah, that was a short-lived stint. But I think we didn't go back there. I mean, I think we all would have went back if it would have caught on. I don't exactly know what happened there. I'm not sure what didn't catch on. Maybe the TV ratings I'm going to go with, only because, the arenas were packed because however they got them in there, But I don't know what happened. I guess ratings might have not have done well. And that was it. I guess that part I really don't know.
I don't think wrestling was a really big deal in India at that point, really, was it? That's nearly, like 15, 20 years ago, or roughly, I think. So it wasn't, I don't think it was a really big deal then.
When I did the Ring King, let's see, it had to be, I was at WWE 2008. I did TNA 2010. I would say about 9-10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, more recent. Oh, so maybe it was just
2021. It couldn't be 15 years ago because 15 years ago, I was still I left WWE in 2008, and I did the TNA thing. I did the TNA thing for a little while. I did a lot of independence. So I think I went over there in 2010, 2011. So I would say 9-10 years. But I don't know. I don't know. Was when I don't remember ever going to Italy. I've been to Italy a million times. I don't remember going to India. When I was in WWE, I don't remember anybody going to India. And I don't remember. I don't know. I know I never was there, so I don't know if anybody else was.
I think they go there quite often now, don't they? I think they've got training camps there now as well.
Yeah, now they seem like they're there all the time.
All the time.
So I mean, it definitely became popular recently. It wasn't the company that we went for was, I think India was trying to build their own brand. Rocket King, their own India, instead of the WWE. But no, hey, it was a good try. They tried.
Yeah. Can't blame them for trying. One thing that I really want to ask about, in storyline, your character obviously didn't agree with Vito being a cross-dresser, but how did you feel about it? Because I know I know Vito enjoyed playing that role. I know he's been asked. People have assumed that he hated it, but I know that he really enjoyed it. How did you guys in the locker room feel? Because it was at that sort of time where I imagine some of the more, I don't know, some of the more old school wrestlers might not have liked something like that.
Oh, well, nobody said anything. I'll tell you what, I give Vito a lot of credit for doing that. And I was there when we came back. They were using me and Vito for, as a tag team for about a year or so. And then I remember one time we came back and somebody said Stephanie McMahon wants to talk to you guys in her office. So we go in there, and I believe Vince McMahon was in there too. And that's when now I'm standing there. Now that's when they presented this gimmick, and they were telling Vito that they didn't want it like a gay gimmick or anything like that. You don't have it like that. You're a tough guy, but you like to wear a dress. And they said, but we don't want you go out there like a machine, like an animal, like Vito you are, but you like to wear a dress. And the gimmick's going to be, I never knew this all this time. So then built it into a little storyline. But in the very beginning, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to ask me to do this too. I don't really want to do this. But he embraced it. I give him a ton of credit. He made it work. Yeah. And then they asked him, to wear the dress everywhere he went. He was wearing it in airports. He was wearing it on the airplane. He was wearing it when he was going to stores, but he got pretty popular. So a lot of people that would see him knew who he was.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a lot to ask for someone to dress in a dress to go to stores. Well, nowadays, not as much, maybe it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But that was a gimmick. I remembered, but that was what they had for him. I mean, he could have said no. So I don't think nobody. A lot of people said, "Oh, it was a rib towards him." I'm not so sure it was a rib. I don't know, but it didn't affect the boys. Nobody made fun of him or did anything to him. Vito's actually a pretty tough guy. He's no pushover. He ain't gonna let you sit there and let you make fun of him. He's not going to sit there and take any shit from anybody. Vito's not, no. He's a tough guy. And that's where they came up with that gimmick. You're not a flamboyant guy. You're a tough guy. You just like to wear a dress. That was the gimmick. So, no, I don't remember anybody, unless there might have been people that told stories that they, sometimes you hear the story. I don't know how true it is, but I don't know. I didn't hear anybody. I mean, it was rough one time because sometimes I would, we really wouldn't travel because we don't supposed to, when Vito draws attention when he's walking through the airport with a dress on, big, bald, muscle guy wearing a dress. So it's like we couldn't travel together because we were doing he was doing cross wrestling and I didn't know about it. But there were times I was in the airport and you walk by with Vito, people look at him like you're looking at Andre the Giant. That was double taken because it's like, that guy wearing a dress? If he wasn't with me sometimes, I look ordinary. If I'm resting my regular clothes, I got a hat on, I could just walk right through. When you're walking with a guy wearing a dress, big, bald guy built, it draws a little bit of attention to you.
Yeah.
So actually, going to stores with him sometimes, and in the airport at times I was with him. He drew some attention, but again, he embraced the character and he made it work. Kind of like I heard that story about Dusty Rhodes when they put him in the polka dots. People said that was a rib. I don't know how true it was, but Dusty took that gimmick and made it work. But Sapphire, he was over like crazy, and people said it was a rib. Whether it was or not, I don't know. But Dusty took that gimmick and made it work. They put him in polka dots. He's the guy from the NWA, wrestling with Harley Race and Ric Flair, and he's in WWE. And then all of a sudden he's wearing polka dots. So he made that work, and that should be an inspiration for people. No matter what they give you as a gimmick, if you can make it work, make it work.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, like
all of a sudden it's not a rib anymore.
No. If that's a rib, like, fine. I'm on national TV and I'm being paid a lot of money to do it. Rib me. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'll do it.
Yeah. I don't think it was.
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was either. Would you? You said that you were worried they were going to ask you to wear a dress. Would you have worn a dress if they'd have asked you to do it?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. It's up to you if you want to do it. It's some people would, some people wouldn't. I don't know. It may. I think that's a decision that they had to come down to. Okay, do I want a job or do I not want a job?
Yeah.
Of
course. Yeah.
Right now, it's easy for me to sit there and go. I can tell you right now, no way I would never wear it. No way. No, that's not the case, because now I could say that knowing that it's over and doesn't matter anymore. But that's not what I was thinking then. Then I'm like, oh man, I hope they don't ask me. I was undecided because I didn't know where they were going with it. So, I don't know. I don't want to sit here and act tough like right now, 12 years later, when it's all over and don't have to worry about it, that I would have, stay stern and be like, nope, I would have never done that. Who knows? Who knows what it would have been like? Who knows? But again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's up to you. Want to wear you want to cross dress, you cross dress. Who cares?
Hindsight's 2020, isn't it? Who knows? Could have been great. Could have been terrible. Who knows? Could
have been terrible. Could have been great. I mean, I think he did it better. He had a different type of look.
Yeah, he did a great job.
He made it work. He made it work. I believe he made it work.
No, 100%. No, man, I do. Anyone I've spoken to in the past does as well. James, look, man, I'm really happy that you joined me. I'm really happy we finally managed to do this. I know you're a bit pressed for time, so I'm not going to keep you too much longer. But I know that you're still doing shows. You're still taking bookings. So before I let you go, what shows have you got coming up soon? Any events, signings, conventions, anything like that where people can find you at?
Yeah, well, Guido_Nunzio is my Instagram. If anybody wants to follow me, or Nunzio_Guido. You'll find it. It's one of the two. Nunzio_Guido, Guido_Nunzio. I'm actually doing a show this Saturday for Tracy Smothers. We're doing a memorial show out in Nashville, Tennessee. So, but by the time this airs, that show is going to be over. And then I got a few things coming up, but they're I know I actually got to look at my book, but I'm keeping busy. I wrestle 3-4 times a month. I'm having some fun. I've got a regular gig going on. I run a security company now during the week, and that's it. Pretty much retired from wrestling, and just having some fun, making some extra money.
Yeah, man. Why not? Why not? Absolutely. Awesome. So
my Twitter's the same thing. Guido_Nunzio. Anybody wants to follow?
Yeah, man, I'll put all of that in the description.
You know what it is, because you have it. I know that.
Yeah, I've got it. I'll put it all down there in the description so people can just click away and find you. I'll put some links in there for any shows that you've got coming up as well. James, man, thank you. Like I said, thank you. I've been really looking forward to this. I'm glad we finally did it. We had some issues getting it done, but I'm really happy we did. Thank you for giving me your time. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. As usual, you know where to find me. It'll all be in the About section, all the different audio platforms, all the different social medias. It's My Wrestling Podcast. And I hope to catch you next time on It's My Wrestling Podcast.